for myself to have like a clear North Star, a clear guidance, there are any motivators that I could add to make sure people, act in a certain way. I would say engagement mode number 1. Engagement mode number 2 would be where marketing has always been in the history of its existence, about bringing the consumer's point of view into the boardroom. Companies seek out marketing consultants, all because you need someone with agency.
Hey everyone, it's Mukul. I'm the host at The Great Fix. For today's episode, I'm excited to sit down with Kavinda Welagedara, founder whose story begins with cultural pressure to becoming an engineer, a short-lived accounting career, and an accidental entry into advertising. By 21, he has already won the Young Clients competition, but it was his frustration with how big agencies treated people that pushed him to start FUDGE in 2020. In our conversation, we trace this journey of chance, fear, and rebellion, and how each pivot sharpened his belief that behavior, not recycled jargon, drives real marketing. We dive into why chasing a perfect why is less useful than acting on buyer truth, the friction between theory and execution, and why buyer first should be constant center of every decision. Let's dive in. The recording has started. So, hi Kavinda, good morning. How are you?
Hey Mukul, doing good? How are you, buddy?
Great as well. Well, thanks for joining. I'm excited for the conversation.
Likewise.
Maybe a place to start can be, how did you get here? Where did you grow up? What were you like? If you can tell a little bit about that.
Okay. So typical South Asian upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
From a very small age, I was, gently nudged into, becoming an engineer or doctor or lawyer or one of those things, So I don't know whether you have this in India. We have this
It
thing
is.
called the
The
grade
reason I'm
5.
the reason I'm laughing right now is I can draw parallels here as well.
Okay. So we have this thing called the scholarship, the grade 5 scholarship exam, which essentially means that grade 2 onwards, when you are like, you barely comprehend and you can barely form a sentence, but you are essentially in the rat race. I basically was thrown into that, and I managed to get good grades, and I got into one of these elite Colombo schools. Let's call them Ivy League schools. So then my family, we lived outside of Colombo, about 1 hour, 1.5 hours outside of Colombo. And in Sri Lanka, the thing you need to know is maybe half an hour outside of the city, you get into the suburbs, and the suburbs, by any other standard, are like a rural townships, right? So I wouldn't say it's rural and it's hectic, but it's not the city. It's not urban. Yeah. So we moved into Colombo, and that required some adjustment. People were different, and in this half an hour's drive from the semi-urban areas to the urban areas, there's a huge kind of difference in culture. Yeah. This is
How
important.
different? Like a very heuristically, it's assumed that if the area is huge, let's say India or Canada, then you can see the cultural differences easily. But is this the same case with Sri Lanka as well?
See, Sri Lanka is not a big country. It's maybe 65,000 square kilometers. It's, I think, smaller than Tamil Nadu. So I think the special thing about Sri Lanka is because of the geographical diversity. I don't know if you have been, but every few 100 kilometers, the geography changes drastically. The climate changes drastically. I think culture also changes drastically, because in that half an hour's drive, culture changes drastically, and it took some adjustment, right? In terms of aspiration, in terms of who inspires who, what language is spoken, what is deemed a status driver, what is not, etc. Right? And in the city, most families that I like, the friends that I had, their families usually they came from money, and I came from a middle class setting, so that took adjustment, right? And so yeah, that was how it all began, I would say. And then I had a very unfortunate incident in school during my O levels, and I decided to apply to a different school. This was another big school, and again I got a scholarship. I got in there for my A levels, and this was another completely different subculture, but this is within Colombo, different subcultures. Yeah. And here, in my previous school, the culture was such that there was so much pressure for you to succeed in academics and not really anything else. So if you and one single class had like 40, 50 people, and if you were the 40th in your class, you would always be looked down upon, and you would be treated like you're nothing. And luckily for me, I always came in first or second, but that's not the point I'm trying to make. But it was that kind of culture. Whereas when I went into St. Thomas's, my last school, the culture was very different. It was more open, and we were not really pressured into following just academics. It was more you had to be well rounded.
Yeah.
And this kind of school is reserved to the wealthiest of the wealthiest, even though I got in through a scholarship, right? So that kind of changed my worldview again, right? And I began to kind of fight back and kind of rebel against this external pressures to become an engineer, right? Unfortunately, I had to give it a go because my parents were quite convincing. I enrolled in engineering school, and I gave it a go. I lasted all of 6 months, and I dropped out. Then they asked me, so if not engineering, what do you want to do? I didn't know what to really say. I looked at what my friends were doing, and all of them were doing accounting, and I said accounting. And this time I actually lasted the entire, course, and I got certified and all of that. And then I got my first job as an account executive, and lasted again all of 6 months. It was like horrible, mind-numbingly boring shit. And I did not enjoy it. And so the thinking at this point in time is, right, even though you hate it and it's a job you're supposed to hate it, since you are qualified in finance, now you have to go and do finance. So I was looking for another job in finance, and one of my friends said, okay, there's an account executive post in an advertising agency in Colombo. Little did I know that account executive in an advertising agency is a completely different role, not a finance related one.
So you the word account confused you. You have to manipulate it.
Yeah. So that was my introduction to advertising. And at the interview, my boss asked me, okay, you know that this is not an accounting related job, right? And I lied to him. I said, yeah, of course I know it's not accounting related. And I got the job. And yeah, I was there for five years. It felt like I was a fish out of the water, and everything came so naturally to me. 6 months down the line, I was winning the Young Lions competition. And that's when I knew, okay, maybe this is something I'm good at. Even though no one told me. My entire life, I was told I'm good at maths, I'm good at physics, I'm good at this and that. No one told me I'm good at creativity. I think even if people knew, they wouldn't tell me because again, I think you can relate to this in our culture, in our part of the world. If you call someone an artist, it's like calling someone a dirty hippie.
I'll give one very recent example. I have a cousin sister. She comes and visits home, talks to my mother. And what I do, like working remotely, it's still very confusing for many in
Mm,
this culture to understand. Like they understand typical roles, going out to the office,
mm,
packing the tiffin, and those sort of things. And she's like, I don't get what he does in that room, but yeah.
mm.
And
Yeah, so
hmm, hmm.
please go.
And your story as well of moving away from one thing to the other, very similar as well. Again, studied from a school in my city, which is like the cream layer, the top layer, but me not being that wealthy person. So always there are few set of students whose parents want, like they have a proxy that an expensive school is equal to good education.
Mm,
So my parents put me there because they wanted me to succeed in life, but that's not the case. Things are very different in those schools.
yeah,
Um, and then when class 11th came, we have to choose a subject. And I
yeah.
chose mathematics, PCM, physics, chemistry, maths. And I go to the coaching for for preparation of engineering. And slowly, when you don't like something, you just run away from it. So for me, that escape initially was to skip coaching, just put fake attendance that I am present and those sort of things. And in 3 months, I think I went to the school. I
Right.
asked the admin to give me a form in which I can change my subject of class 11th. I would change it to commerce.
Okay.
But there was a fear of parent as well. What will they think? Without telling them I'm doing this decision. So what I did was I said, okay, I'll take commerce, but I'll also keep maths. So
Mm.
again, I can just keep some typical chartered accountancy and stuff.
Right. Right.
Big fiasco
Yeah. So
and
yeah, I think that's the standard kind of process when you are moving fields in a brown culture, right? It's not like you are in the UK and you decide mathematics is not your calling and the next day you are in arts. We
yeah.
can't do that. We don't have that luxury. It's slow and gradual steps where, okay, I'll do maths and
Mm, mm, mm,
English
mm,
maybe just to appease your parents. So I think the problem is in, if you look at culture as an operating system,
mhm,
I think we are still stuck in a very outdated version of it, the
mm.
Victorian English version of it, where,
Yeah.
like you said, the elite school equals good education. That's a very
Mm,
Victorian sentiment
mm, mm,
that our
mm, mm,
parents are
mm.
stuck
But
with.
that's not the case. That's not the case. Realize people are more messed up in those schools than a normal typical.
I
Um,
think I think kids are kids everywhere. It's
mm,
just
mm,
what you're seeing is a reflection of their
mm.
parents.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, that was my kind of ascent into advertising.
Hmm.
10, 11 years ago, and I was at that company for 5 years on and off. Then
How did you like did you get mentored by someone? Like you started winning the awards lines and all these.
no mentorship.
Hmm.
It's just something I did for fun, and it won me
Hmm.
something. I
How old
mean,
were you back then
I was 21.
when you started the first role?
Yeah, first role in advertising, I was 21. Yeah,
It's Sarva Colombo. That was the
correct.
name of the company.
Yeah, Sarva.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, so 5 years there. Then I was at Isobar. I don't know whether you've heard of Isobar. It's part of Grant's Dentsu.
Mm-hmm.
I was there for a very short period of time, about 3 months, as their manager strategy, basically
Mm-hmm.
heading that department. And yeah, that didn't go very well for me. Then purely out of frustration, I started FUDGE because I did not like the way how employees were treated at these advertising agencies. This doesn't go for Sarva. I love Sarva as an agency, but I saw, in my very short stint at Isobar and, Dentsu, got an insight as to how things work in all of these other big agencies, and I did not enjoy that. And with my experience, with my very bad experience, I decided we can do better. Advertising agencies can do better, which is why I started FUDGE in 2020. And about
So
3 years into
after working in these organizations, you just directly jumped and took the leap of faith. Like, were you skeptic
yes.
if you would make it?
Oh, definitely. Not skeptical. I think I was scared. I was shitting my pants. I don't want to lie to you. It was scary.
You did it
I
all
mean,
alone? Like, you're the
no.
co-founder?
I had my friend, Devanjana. We were equally frustrated about different things. We were equally, in a bad mental state. So I think our depression canceled each other, and we kind of found out that we could rely and depend on each other. That's how this all started. And that was Fudge, right? And see, again, it was a fluke, and a lot of people said it's the middle of COVID. What are you doing? This is not going to work. We did it anyway. And I'm not saying Fudge is super successful and the best agency there is right now. We're still working towards it. We are still, I think, a very small agency, but we are staying true to, what the vision we had 5 years ago, to do something different and to do what agencies were supposed to do, to, stay true to our craft and make sure there's a commercial gain at the end of it for our clients. And that momentum kind of inspired me to build Cranial about 3-4 years down the line. And then I replicated, or I'm trying to replicate, the FUDGE model in the UK with an agency called Obviously Works. And my kind of more recent obsession is with behavioral science training and consulting. And that's with Creative Instinct. That's a company that I co-founded with a gentleman called Gary in the UK. So yeah, and now we are up to speed.
Perfect. The very interesting thing for me was it's hard to change domains, the lanes in which you are. For example, if someone joins as in the product role. So it's very rare for them to pivot. Or let's just not just talk about roles, but domains, let's say B2B, B2C, two different domains. Maybe some people are very core into B2G, government contracts, all these things. So it becomes very hard for them to learn, unlearn, relearn, and change the lanes completely. The interesting part was how behavior is that single glue. That's what I feel. You can correct me if I'm wrong as well. Which is tying Fudge, which is tying Cranial, Obviously Works, Creative Instincts, all the organizations together. Because if I think today that after working for 3-4 years in B2B, prospecting and all the other stuff I've done, should I move to B2C and start learning ads? Just basic stuff, not too much. It's very uncomfortable place in my head. Is it because behavior is something that you keep in the middle? That's the reason you're able to learn, unlearn, and make pivots easily, which are very hard for the others? Or is there a method you have for yourself?
I think the reason it's uncomfortable in your head, possibly more than it is in my head, is because I think at a higher level than you do. You think about the tactics as well, whereas in my role, people hire me for the thinking. And after I'm done with my thinking, I kind of pass it on to someone like you who is a professional at what you do. Right, where you can carry on my thinking and make it better and make it more practical, which is not something I can do, right? So in my role as a generalist, what I can help clients with is in giving them clarity, because I'm usually speaking to a business person who would not, in most circumstances, understand what you are doing. They would probably understand business metrics, or they would understand bottom line. So I am able to kind of work around that and basically pass some knowledge on to you, whereby you will use that to make things work for them, right? So if we were to work together, I don't think you and I would be competing against each other. I would be kind of working at the business/brand level, and you will be working at a more tactical level, at an operational level. So I think that is why there is some friction when it comes to you thinking about B2C. Whereas for me, I can always, because it's like the difference between a theoretical physicist and a experimental physicist, right? So for me, it's most of my work is to do with theory and making sure that the theory is applicable for the company, whereas you will take that information and make sure the right toolkits, the right knowledge, the right infrastructure is there for the execution of that.
Got it. So it seemed like, for example, if I'm writing an email, email is a very common thing, so I bring it up again and again. So if I'm writing an email for B2B, and all of a sudden, if someone asks me, hey, let's do it for B2C and have a very different promotional e-commerce email, the learning curve for me is very high. Like I may even write something I even don't know as verse that would actually work. So I get it. Your point.
So what in this scenario, it's great that you brought this up. In this scenario, what I would most likely do is do my research and tell the client, okay, this customer segment that we are trying to talk to is the kind of segment that will open their email regularly. So it makes sense to borrow from the B2B domain and apply some of that learning into the B2C domain, right? And from a behavioral point of view, these are some of the things that you could use. These are some of the interventions that you could use to make that email successful. But as a marketer, as a brand strategist, I wouldn't know anything about writing that email beyond that point, right? It will take someone like you to advise the client on, okay, what's the best way or what's the most accepted way to write this email.
Got it. So when you say combining behavioral science, data science to drive B2B profits, for obviously works, is it relying on the data that software tools give you, ad spend, and the leading indicators that you get, and then you use that to iterate on top of that? Or do you have fundamental principles of behavior that they would work in any kind of channel or domain?
I don't know that I'm sure there are some heuristics, some biases, some habits that are common to everyone. I wouldn't prescribe to anyone that they try to find these or rely on these. Where I would start is by figuring out whether this company has the data or not. If you are a very small company just starting out, it's very likely that you don't have the data. And even if you start marketing, running paid ads today, you will not gather enough data for me to come to a judgment within a few months, right? You will need a fairly big amount of data. So there I would start with desktop research if need be, and if the client has budgets, I will go into talking to people as well, right? I will have conversations, make sure what behavioral models are applicable in these situations, what nudges or not what sorry not nudges what behaviors are observed, what habits are there, what heuristics people usually use, and then try to see if there are any barriers that I could remove, if there are any motivators that I could add to make sure people act in a certain way, right? So that is I would say engagement mode number one. Engagement mode number two would be where the company is big enough, they have enough data, right? And there would be one of my, so with obviously works, Jordan is my business partner and he's a data science whiz. He would, take a look at the data. He will tell me, okay, this is what the data tells you. And I will start from there and maybe give him a few messaging variants if you're running an ad campaign that incorporate some of these behavioral biases, behavioral nudges that might drive this behavior. In either case, it's a better approach than, starting with a gut feel or starting from scratch. So this is the advantage of behavioral science for me.
Okay.
Make sense?
Coming to the main thing, why behavior exercise excited me, you in the B2B space, and you might be very familiar about the role that's there right now, like very famous on LinkedIn, which they call GTM engineering, GTM engineer. And there's a software called Clay. Clay does what? You can do data orchestration, signaling, waterfall, and all the other stuff in that. Few people who are deep down, like decades of real experience in B2B, and I sort of agree with them as well, that Clay is VC backed organization and they're just creating a role out of thin air, GTM engineering. Because for them, the definition of GTM engineering would be someone who is able to use API, orchestrate data, pull TAM, personalize on scale. But that's not what GTM means. It's just the end part of GTM, sending, prospecting. So behavior plays a big role. If you talk about GTM and GTM engineering is just a hyped up version to sell something. Cool. So I'll move to the main thing now, which is buyer first. I was having conversations with few of the people, and they commented that the buyer first angle that you want to bring, it's trending, or it's not something really has its own feet. What they try to mean is it's just a hype. You just want to pick words which are cool in the market, like GTM engineering. 50% of my brain wants to believe that, because again, when everyone is speaking about something, there has to be some form of truth to that, and 50% of me don't want to believe in that thing, because I know how even buyers are tuned out. They don't give attention. So much of surgical precision is needed in each campaign to at least make them behave, nudge, get that receptivity back from them. Do you think what part is true? Is it a hype? Is it a word that is new in the market of behavioral science? I don't know. I don't want to connect it with behavior. I can be wrong, but is that part true, or this part true, that it needs real focus from marketers or revenue people?
Are we discussing buyer first are we discussing buyer first the word or phrase, or are we discussing the meaning behind it?
Talking buyer first as a what, why, how. So how a company does things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So Maybe these people are right, but my focus is on my focus is marketing. And I think when we talk about marketing has always been, um, in the history of its existence, about bringing the consumer's point of view into the boardroom. So you can call it buyer first, you can call it, and there have been a long line of buzzwords to explain this same phenomenon.
Yeah.
You can call it whatever you want to call it, but the role of marketing is bringing that consumer insight or that human truth into the boardroom. Because when you are running the company, when you are the person calling the business shots, you are disassociated with the market reality. That happens when you have ownership of something, or when you have ownership over something, then you lose. You are in that tunnel vision mindset. You are in your own bubble, and that is a very human thing, which is why agencies are a thing, which is why companies seek out marketing consultants, all because you need someone with agency. I don't mean the physical thing agency, I mean the concept of agency, to come in and tell you this is what the average Joe thinks about your category, right? And this is what marketing has always been. No matter what shiny tech piece has been, launched into the market, even with AI, until a day comes where my personal AI makes my buying decisions, and Mukul's personal AI, the seller, talks to my AI, and you strike a deal, and the buy sell thing happens there. Until that day comes, it's a human that will make that decision, and that human needs to be the center of attention for every marketer, right? Now, if you take the business point of view, I maybe see it's 50% the buyer, it's also 50% the owner of the business, right? It's always what does the business want to do and what does the market want. If you take the motor vehicle, the market did not want that, right? But the business wanted to put that out, and then after it was put out, the market wanted that, right? No one in the market said, I want ChatGPT.
But now it is here, everyone wants it.
Everyone wants it. Yeah. So I agree with some of these people about the broader business perspective of buyer first. But in a marketing sense, the thing that I care about, we are all about buyer first. I don't see a universe where marketing is not about buyer first.
2 years ago, I was working in an agency. There, they gave me a very simplified version of what marketing is and what sales is. For them, marketing was generating interest and sales was closing that interest. Okay, I was young. That definition made sense. The current definition for me is marketing helps create conditions where revenue can happen. And now when you speak about bringing the customer insight where there's no dissonance and there's no divergence in what the customer really wants, and we're doing the exact things in parallel to that, do you want to change this definition? Do you agree with this? That marketing does all those things where it creates the condition where revenue can happen, but the responsibility of revenue has to be with the sales team. Is it too complex? Are we complicating it? Are we running away from the responsibility of attributing the efforts to revenue?
What is the role of a definition? That's a more important question here.
For me, right now, the definition role should be alignment internally when there are multiple teams. Business growth as a very broad concept should be everyone's alignment, but pointing fingers on each other is not what takes any company forward.
Yeah, fair enough. See, when I need to achieve that objective, I like to keep things as simple as possible.
Okay.
So what I tell clients, if they are able to understand this, is these two things. Marketing is about make things easy to buy and easy to remember. So for me, marketing achieves a perceived effort function. It reduces perceived effort.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
And that is usually sufficient if the objective is for me to explain it to someone who might not be familiar with marketing, what marketing needs to do, what marketing needs to achieve, and like you said, to arrive at this point of harmony between teams. But if it is for, let's say, for myself to have like a clear North Star, a clear guidance, maybe I will convolute it a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Again, depending on the situation. I wouldn't have an example to give you right now. But again, it depends on the context that I am in. It depends on the person I'm talking to, right? If I'm talking to another marketer, someone I'm very familiar with, the definition might change depending on the
Mm-hmm.
conversation we are having. But I'm not too, as you can tell, I'm not too fixated on definitions, right? As long as you and I have a shared language and you know what I'm talking about, that's sufficient.
Got it. From our previous conversation, I shared about the definition of buyer first by Navtech. They sell interactive demos, and for them, connecting with sales, showcasing the product, and highlighting the pricing and packaging. That's it. If any company does that, they're buyer first. I want you to help me. First of all, I don't agree with that. That's very narrowed. It's not accepting other industries as well, and it's very limited to SaaS. And the fourth thing is it considers only when a customer or a prospect is willing to buy. So all the stuff
Mm,
related to pricing, sales, product is when they have
mm,
completely made up a decision. Okay, this is the vendor that I want to go ahead with.
yeah.
I want you to help me come up with a not a framework. Framework would take its own time, but a definition, a checklist, something that once this call is done, I can use that going forward. And
What will
my
you use
issue
it
is
for?
want to use it for like heuristically. So I know that if I put this lens, this definition, and all the decisions I take from that lens, I am a buyer first organization. So I'm not talking about too fixed definition. Okay, you
Mm-hmm.
send emails which are short. No.
Okay.
But when we say you reduce friction, yes. So if reduce friction, it can be in SaaS, it can be in product, it can be when you send a proposal for your service business. So
Mm,
I'm not looking for a playbook or
mm-hmm.
exact things. I'm looking for a lens,
Okay.
which is broad enough that it is not limited as it was. Like no SaaS, including other industries as well.
Mm,
Not just saying that prospects are ready to buy and then what buyer first is, and not too narrowed that it tells me exactly write short emails or do this, do that. That middle path, and that's what I want you to help me with.
okay. So I think that model already exists, that
Okay.
framework. So I think you can look up the category entry point framework by the Ehrenberg Bass University, the Ehrenberg Bass Institute. I don't
Okay.
know whether you've heard of Byron Sharp
Never.
and okay.
I'll put
S-
that image when I make the edit. But yeah.
Okay, sure, lovely.
Yeah.
So the 7 Ws, I think it's called. I can't remember all seven off the top of my head, but it discusses what are the purchase situations, at what points in time would people buy from the category, right? Is this a seasonal product? Is this category thought of maybe after a business meeting, after a quarterly review? With whom is the category thought of, for example? Is this thought of when you are in a boardroom setup, or is this thought of maybe when you are home after work, right? Why does this product category come to mind? Is it to minimize a pain, or is it to achieve some kind of ego boost at work?
Right. So the thinking here is people are rarely convinced to buy for most categories just after seeing an ad or a marketing message of some sort. People are usually ready to buy when they're ready to buy, either impulsively or otherwise, when they have a reason to buy, when they have been looking for a particular solution that could be emotional, that could be rational. That is when they're ready to buy. Okay. So this, I don't know whether we can call this a framework. Maybe this is too simplistic to be called a framework, but this is greatly helpful, right? This basically explores as to what buying situations your business will come to the buyer's mind. Yeah, right. So these are some of the kind of buying situations or some of the emotions to which buying situations are attached. One is what is the feeling, right? What are the emotions that you need to feel? So if I were to buy, let's say, this uh, bottle of water versus, let's say, a Stanley. I know Stanley is a coffee cup, but let's assume it's for water as well. The difference would be some sort of pride, because everyone knows Stanley. That bottle that I just showed you, no one knows, right? So a Stanley would be, quote unquote, a proper way to carry your fluids around. Okay. So people who are looking for this particular solution will look for a Stanley Cup, right? The next category entry point, or the kind of cluster of entry points, would be around why. What are the motives and benefits? Now, the example that they've given, this is from, I think, the LinkedIn B2B Research Institute. What are the motives and benefits of buying this product? There are a bunch of products that come to mind when you want to get promoted or when you want to avoid getting fired. So one situation, one kind of popular, story here is the one of IBM. I don't know whether you've heard this. You'll never be fired for buying IBM. Yeah, that's quite popular. So if you want to buy a safe option that will not get you fired, even if an IBM is a bad solution, even if the IBM doesn't fit the internal corporate requirement, you can just tell your boss that, hey, I got the best thing that is out there. It's not my problem. And your job will be safe. Yeah. And also, then there are certain products that come to mind during certain time periods of the year, not of the year only, but certain time periods of the day, right? If you are a smoker with typical kind of, habit formation structures like me, you'll probably want smoke with your coffee. Okay. And that is a category entry point for that particular category of products. And that is strongly tied to a time. Okay. You can expand that into B2B. There are certain products that come to mind after a quarterly financial review, when you understand that the next quarter's forecasts are not going to be, or not going as planned, right? Are not going to be met. Yeah. There are things that come to mind while you are doing other activities. There are things that come to mind while you are with other people, right? There are things that come to mind when you think of other people. These are decisions you make or products you buy for other people.
Okay. So
Yeah.
there's no structure or a flow to this, that it
No,
starts.
certain categories don't really have like a specific timing attached to it, right? You just need to be aware of the category. That is the bare minimum knowledge that you need to have to be able to use this framework, I believe.
And this
But
category
nevertheless,
point, the category entry
sorry,
point,
go.
this entry point explains when a customer or anyone, any human being is thinking about a product that they can or they might use in their lives to solve a problem.
I wouldn't say it explains purchase situations. It gives us the framework to kind of evaluate the product through the buyer's point of view, right?
Okay.
Often when we are sitting in a boardroom, we see the product as a product, and the product is for a certain buyer persona, and that's that. But when we shift the focus to the buyer that sits at the end of, sits at the receiving end, for that person, it's tied to certain, mental shortcuts and associations, right? You don't live your whole life thinking about IBM. You only think of IBM when your existing product is shit, or when you want to show to your management that you are making responsible, safe decisions.
Understood. So how do you use this? Like, have you used it in practicality in your work right now?
I use it as much as possible. So the formal way of using it, or the recommended way of using this,
Mm-hmm.
I think in How Brands Grow Part 2, the book by Byron Sharp and Jenny Romaniuk, they go on to describe the kind of questions you need to ask customers to figure out what the category entry points are for a certain category.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, the first step is to do your research, to do your due diligence, to figure out what are the category entry points. You do that,
Mm-hmm.
and then you come to a good enough understanding as to these are the entry points. These are the things that myself and products that are similar to me and adjacent to me will be thought of.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then we see, okay, um, then you will find out, for example, competitor A uh, is over indexing on these particular category entry points. For example, let's take KitKat. KitKat is a brand that indexes highly on the category entry point of something to be had when while I'm enjoying a break. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
You
it's
will
about.
also see that another product category that fights for the same mental space is a cigarette.
Mm-hmm. The timing thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
break, the
So
lunch break. Okay.
so even if you don't do your due diligence, it makes sense. Even when I say due diligence, I mean research. Even if you don't do your research, it makes sense for you to kind of apply this framework.
Mm-hmm.
Even at an abstract level, it helps you. I mean, it ties strongly back to the topic of this conversation. It helps you think of the category and the product and the brand and the industry and all of that from a
Mm-hmm.
buyer's point of view, which is the key to me. So there are situations where I might not always have budgets to go out into the market and do my due diligence, do my research, speak to 20, 30 people and do a focus group. But I might still be able to, apply this at an abstract level, at a conceptual level, and come to a reasonably well enough understanding to either ask for more budgets or do something worthwhile for the client.
Mm-hmm. You can do the research and trying to see how you can facilitate that buying decision, even in B2B. Again, we have to think
Yeah.
more on it. We have to think more on it. It's not too over the top simple, but yeah. And
Yeah,
there's
definitely. I mean, see, you can't really arrive at the buyer's mindset without talking to buyers.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So there's no structure to it. It can be anything. How, where, why, and all.
There is no structure to it straight off the bat. But the more
Mm-hmm.
you ask questions, the more you speak to people, the more you think about it, the more structure you give it. Because for any product category, you won't have all of these different entry points. You might have a few. You will see that a few of your competitors are doing well on one or two. You will see gaps where none of the competitors are currently occupying any of the space.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you dive deeper, the more clearer it will become which space you need to occupy, at least initially.
Mm-hmm. And then you can expand later on once you capture one entry
Yes.
overall.
Yeah. So maybe it's not a framework in your traditional sense where it's quite linear and it goes first do this, and then do that. This is
Mm-hmm.
more, for me at least, it feels a little heady and it's more practical.
So when we were having conversation earlier and you disagreed with the title of the book, Start With Why,
Mhm.
was this one reason that the entry points can come at any point of time and there's no certainty of how that decision starts behaviorally in the head of the consumer?
The reason I disagree with Start With Why is because I have watched Simon Sinek's TED video,
Mm-hmm.
his TED talk,
Yeah.
and he has a, you know, I would say very spiritual definition as to what he means by it. You need to dig deep, find, really meditate on what you are doing.
Mm-hmm.
You need to definitely have a deeper reason as to why you are doing the business. Maybe from a very humanistic standpoint, that feels good, but it is not necessary.
Mm-hmm.
There are two things you.
Is it because why focuses too much on the company and not on the buyers?
Why pushes founders to find meaning that might not be there, might not be necessarily true. That is unnecessary pressure, given that business owners, shareholders, and founders have already a lot of things going on. And it's not useful from a commercial point of
So what I understood by reading that book and going through the
view.
TED video as well was
Hmm.
the reason to start with why
Hmm.
is when you make people believe in the cause, not just cause, but the the story that they can be part of,
Mm.
then they take decisions and rationalize post purchase. That
Mm.
is at a very broader level what why the start with why
Hmm.
is there.
Okay.
And in that TED talk he speaks about the example of Apple, where Apple does not
Hmm.
say we sell laptops. What?
Hmm.
This is how the laptops are: good screen,
Mm.
HD, RAM, and other technical
Mm.
features. Wanna buy one, but it flips and starts with we believe, like again, a belief that people want to stick to. We believe in
Mm.
removing the status quo. We see things differently. We happen to make computers, and then one wanna buy one. And when
Hmm.
he puts it in this way, like when he puts it in a very structured way, even I'm convinced as a normal human being, yeah, this sounds at least sounds good. Maybe in the end
Mm.
it can be something else, but it feels good to go ahead
Yeah.
and purchase a MacBook or an iPhone because
Mm.
of that story. So that was the reason I was convinced about start with why. But yeah,
Yeah.
practically how to apply it in complex situations, I've also struggled with that.
What we don't know, Mukul, is whether Steve Jobs started there or whether that's a marketing message.
Yeah, yeah. that
And
it can also
that's
be Like sometimes you are easily able to create theories post facto.
Hmm. Yeah. And what Simon Sinek is really good at is selling.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.